Welcome to Fast Effect Double Speed Magic the Gathering from ELD's Time Vault Games. This is it, the finals of the ELD Premodern Open. Justin on Tidenought versus Josh on Blue-White Tide, leading out with a Portent, pretty common opening for Tidenought. Get that card selection. You really want to pull together a Dreadnought with a Stifle or Vision Charm early with backup in pretty much every match. Tide going to be a slower, controlling approach to the game. He's going to need to beat down with Mishra's Factories. A Tidestill list. Standstill gets hit with a counterspell. And Justin fires off an AK for 1. Managed to fit a full playset of AKs into the main. Card is absolutely brutal against slower control decks. A pair of counterspells. And now, thinking the coast is clear, gonna Stifle Dreadnought. That's what the deck is all about. Parallax Tag denied by that second counter. Would have been probably game over. And Charm actually protecting Dreadnought from Chain of Vapor, which is a pretty reasonable reply to Dreadnought. Kind of main deck aspect of that card. You do expect to face Dreadnought at some point in the fight. So where's the Plowshares now targeting the 12/12? And Daze into a ton of open mana, so go imagine this is just to get a island in hand for foil. And foil hitting Stifle along with that island. Josh fetching, and another Stifle is going to shut down that fetch. Oh, and immediately punished. Josh only had access to a single blue mana there next to the filter land. Justin hoping that the Stifle would actually show off Counterspell, his actual hard counter to blue. Immediate punch. Josh had mana leak. So the Dreadnought has gone farming. Tons of life gained by Justin, and now he needs to rebuild, being essentially down a Stifle. Would have been useful when he finally does draw a Dreadnought. Factories turning sideways. And yeah, Justin just, at this point, gonna have to be patient. Lost the battle, but not the war. Pair of Mishra's Factories on his side of the board can potentially slow things down, but I mean, that's a Dust Bowl for Josh to blow this game wide open. His turn to be able to knock out a Factory, so Factory's not really going to be super valid for Justin. For Josh, on the other hand, he's pulling out the game. Dust Bowl, hideous as it is. Figured out how to reprint old cards without valuing the originals, just make the new ones look like absolute garbage. There's a pretty decent amount of pre-modern cards that have been reprinted with, I mean, hideous art would be one way to describe it. It's just very different in a format full of nostalgia. It goes in a vacuum. This art is actually pretty interesting. But the modern card frame, or this alternate card frame, does ruffle some feathers. Justin way back into this game, having flash of insight, fired off for 2, now flashing it back from the graveyard. Borderline demonic tutor once you get that X large enough. Stifle Dreadnought incoming activation charm this time. And Josh opting to attack. I actually don't know if I like the attack here. Definitely not winning the race. You're going to have to answer the Dreadnought, so I guess it's a question of is it now or later. Fairness, I didn't have the answer ready to fire off. Use a poke. Chain of Vapor targeting the Dreadnought. And foil discarding a Flash of Insight. Josh with a counterspell for that. Another foil. Foil Island Gush, so good at enabling foil. It's kind of the force of will of the format, but a real exaggeration. Force of will has a lot of meaning behind it, but it is a free counterspell. Man, it is a heavy, heavy price to pay, discarding an island and another card. But when you're playing Gush, that is actually quite doable. Gush is just such an incredibly good Magic card. Go ahead and skill the shuffle here. So on to game 2, coming up fast with a, nope, not Seal Cleansing, that's a basic island one with that Factory, so I'll have to wait. There we go. Seal Cleansing on board. Plus an AK for 1. Seal Cleansing provide insurance. Of course, you can stifle the activation, so it's not the perfect answer. But what is? You're looking at a mix of counter spells, things that can be stifled, things that get stopped by Vision Charm. There's lots of ways Tidenought can defend itself. Much versus just anything Vision Charm is going to do anyways, so often that does buy you extra turn, forcing them to phase it out on their turn. And Humility is another card that's going to be answered here. This is one of those cards that shocked it. Like at least $100. I mean, his reserve list, unbelievably powerful, very unique effect. Fantastic Fogly card on there. Blow my mind, it's not 100. I don't think anybody, if this card ever goes up like $500, I don't think anybody has any right to complain if they were playing at this time when it's such a cheap card. Feels very, very similar to Moat in a lot of ways. It's print run much larger and has some legends. Now a decree being cycled. When you cycle decree, you don't actually exit until the trigger resolves. So it is something to be mindful of. Probably should make a video explaining that. That's a pretty frequent judge call with the newer players getting into the format. Now we have Parallax Tide, Counterspell. All of your lands. A lot of the time you can't afford to be holding onto lands, just playing out each turn as you draw them. And when Tide gives you with literally no mana base, you're just effectively locked out of the game until the top of your deck bails you out. But here Justin does find the misdirection. We actually skipped back by accident there. Here's a Factor Fiction. Looks like from a Vault 20 version. I have the Jace for Chandra queued up. Factor Fiction's resulting. Here we go. Goes Factor Fiction along with some other goodies. I believe that's a null on the top pile. It looks like one of the later printings. Mana Leak. Still very reasonable here. Facing down just 4 lands. And opting for the Factor Fiction plus the Dust Bowl. Factory turning in. Human Knowledge. Looks like it's for free there. And Fiction just gets denied by straight up counterspell. That whole sequence of events, Factor Fiction into Factor Fiction, ultimately shut down there in the end. A single counter, basically just a single Dust Bowl. But Standstill is resolved. And this is really the situation Blue-White Tide is looking to engineer. Rather, Justin didn't have so many islands on the other side of the board, but down with a Standstill in play. Humility on board. Humility makes all creatures 1/1s, however, if it's Factor activate makes it a 2/2. The timestamp actually sets power and toughness as a 2/2. It's absolutely gigantic when your opponent's Dreadnought are only 1/1s. But that's 4 cards off of 8K. That is an absolute fistful. Hard to imagine if Justin's capable of getting out of this. Certainly that sheer amount of card advantage has to allow for it. Indeed. Think both the Humility and a Field Cleanse if he's going to be winning with Dreadnought. I don't really know how to do that. Chain of Vapor is not a great answer to those. Seal Cleanse is easy to play around with Stifle and Vision Charm. The Humility. Ooh. Need the Chain of Vapor and stop from coming back down. I want the discard Chain of Vapor? I can't even understand what I'm looking at there. Discard Chain of Vapor. I feel like you could just fire that off on the Humility. It might even snag a counter. Very interesting. I guess really just didn't want to break the Standstill here. And Stifle. Is that on the activation? Is that what he's stifling? Josh pausing. Stifling another fetch. We got an Impulse. We have Seal of Cleansing, 2 Stifles, Chain of Vapor, and a Brain Freeze. Let's Josh with enough cards left. I mean, Factor Fiction digs really deep. It's 10 cards out of his library there. Let's see where this leaves him. Yeah, looks like it would have left him with just 2 cards left. Or possibly none, but that's a Brain Freeze, just an absolute haymaker out of the sideboard. Congratulations, Justin. That sideboard tech taking it down for you.